Hello everybody and welcome back to another exciting edition of Boyographic, the show in which I, Matt, the Game Boy, take you through the highs and lows of the Game Boy library, one cart at a time. This week we'll be looking at a game with a little bit of historical interest. It's Mickey's Ultimate Challenge. It all started in the early 90s with a guy called Voldi Way. Born in California, Way had accomplished more than most by the time he turned 20. He'd been a child actor, his most notable role in the 1980s movie The Changeling. Then, at the age of 14, he co-founded Metalsoft, a CAD company that produced software for sheet metal manufacturing. With his partners, Way grew the company to a $5 million annual concern. There was just one problem. Voldi wanted to make games. So, on his 20th birthday, having sold off his stakes in Metalsoft to his partners, Voldi Way founded WayForward. At the time, Way was reading Douglas Adams' classic Dirk Gently's holistic detective agency, and couldn't help but be struck by the similarities between himself and the character Gordon Way. Apart from sharing the same surname, Gordon Way owned a company that published MIDI software for Windows and Macintosh. Voldi made software for Windows and Mac, and he owned a MIDI keyboard. In an act of pure serendipity, Douglas Adams had gifted him the perfect name, WayForward. Originally, Way's plan was to create online games, spending money on modems to create a system he called Cybernet, to allow players to experience a vector-based, graphical multi-user dungeon. However, his first game, Trillium, failed to attract users, causing Way to start running out of money. This led him to start selling a shareware bundle called Fun Pack for Windows at swap meets, as well as taking on jobs as a programmer for hire. One such job for designer software was a game called Mickey's Ultimate Challenge. Hired as the game's programmer, Way soon found himself without an artist on the project and offered to help find a replacement, bringing in two CalArts students by the name of Matt Bozone and Rob Buchanan to fill the spot. The rest, as they say, is history. Mickey's Ultimate Challenge was released in 1994 for the Super Nintendo, Genesis, Game Gear, and of course, the Nintendo Game Boy. The team originally started on the Super NES version of the game, handing the game over to future Shantae programmer Jimmy Huey to port the game to Genesis. That version was ported over to the Game Gear, while the WayForward team simplified the game for the Nintendo Game Boy. Some years later, the Game Gear game was also ported to the Master System for the Brazilian market, but that's not what we're interested in. The game, in all its iterations, has a rather simple premise. The player, having selected Mickey or Minnie as their playable character, is transported to the town of Beanwick after falling asleep reading a storybook. It's up to you to find the cause of the town's screen-shaking earthquakes, with a little help from the usual suspects. How do you solve the mystery? Why, by beating several minigames, of course. Goofy, Daisy, Horace, Donald and his nephews, Huey, Dewey and Louie, are scattered around the castle, all with a puzzle-based minigame for the player to overcome. These games are pretty straightforward. Horace has an alphabet-based platforming challenge, Daisy asks you to help clean off the castle's dusty paintings in a Match 2 game, while Huey, Dewey and Louie require you to repeat a pattern to lower a bridge, Simon Says style. Donald and Goofy's puzzles are a little more involved, with Donald requiring the player to undertake a little sokoban, while Goofy wants you to guess what's in his toolbox. But the fun doesn't end there. After beating each of these challenges, the player is given an item that they need to trade with one of the other characters in order to receive a magical bean to climb a beanstalk and awaken a sleeping giant. I'm not sure if it's the fetch quest, the dialogue, or the exploration puzzle solving, but there is a real sense that Mickey's Ultimate Challenge is an attempt to make a point-and-click adventure game on a home console. Though please don't take this as any indication that there is some hidden depth to this seemingly simple game. There really isn't. What you see with Mickey's Ultimate Challenge is what you get. You might also be looking at this footage and thinking to yourself, where's the challenge promised in the title? Well, it's a fair question. At the character select screen, the player is offered a choice of cake, medium, or hard difficulties. Cake is, as you'd expect, a very easy experience that you'll breeze through in about 10 minutes. Medium is a little bit more challenging, with bigger puzzles, a few more sokoban levels, and a tricky alphabet jumping sequence, where the letters aren't in a straight run, and you can't touch the ground once the challenge is started. Hard is perhaps the difficulty you should consider playing on. Though I would argue that some of the puzzles become a little tedious in this mode. The Match 2 game just becomes a longer row, Goofy's guessing game gets harder, and the Simon Says puzzle becomes a 10-string sequence. However, the alphabet game becomes an 8-letter word spelling puzzle, and again, you get more Sokobon, meaning you actually get to play it for more than 2 minutes if that's your thing. The really annoying part about the hard difficulty, at least for me, was the end of game slide puzzle, where you have to make a clock to wake the giant. If that's your bag, then go with challenging. But if, like me, you hate slide puzzles, just stick to medium. There's no extra reward for beating the game on a higher difficulty or with both characters, so choose whatever suits you best. Beyond the simple gameplay, there's a high level of polish to Ultimate Challenge. As you'd expect from two Carl Arts graduates, Matt Buzzone's tilework and Rob Buchanan's animation are on point. Mickey and Minnie look better, I'd argue, than any other of their Game Boy outings, and the animation of the player and non-playable characters is at a very high level. The dialogue is well written and the music is pleasant throughout, making it a perfect game to occupy a younger gamer for a little while. Overall, I wouldn't say you need to fall over yourself to get a copy of Mickey's Ultimate Challenge. As a game, it's very straightforward and might even be a little dull to some gamers. All of the minigames on offer can be found elsewhere in the Game Boy library as standalone experiences that all will offer you a higher level of challenge if that's what you're after. However, if you're a fan of Disney or good-looking sprite work, this might be one for you. It's also an excessively child-friendly game, so if you're looking for something to be your child's first experience on everyone's favourite handheld, this is absolutely the game to do that with, as not only are they sure to beat it, but they might even learn something along the way. While the game doesn't live up to its name, The Ultimate Challenge, there is something magical about the game besides its setting. It could be the animation or its simplicity, but I actually think that the joy I get from playing this game comes from the value of hindsight. This is where WayForward started. Just like in the game, this is the magical bean that would sprout the beanstalk that has, over the last 28 years, produced some of my favourite games of all time. That's why this month is MayForward, where I'll be looking at WayForward's releases before Shantae, taking you to some corners of the Game Boy library you might not expect, and looking at some games that are, well, frankly, worth looking at. So I hope you'll join me for the rest of MayForward. And that brings us to the end of another episode of Boyographic, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please leave a comment down below letting me know what you think of the game. A huge thank you to everyone at WayForward for answering my questions, especially Daisy and Matt Bozzone. And until next week, Game Boys and Girls, game on.